Hello, everybody, and welcome to another RCT2 review stream. Tonight we're going to look at Thorpe Park by Airtime. This was a spotlight winner on a new element with a pretty incredible score of 90. It's a recreation of Thorpe Park, or a semi-recreation, I suppose, of Thorpe Park, which is near London. It has a number of recreations and then a couple of inspired buys, as we'll see as we go through. According to the README, the park was set in 2006 as the park was still expanding some of the areas around and reclaiming some of the water space around. The way that Thorpe builds is they take some of the water and backfill it and then build on that space. The original park was an actual old quarry that they built onto. So let's take a look and dive on in. You'll notice that it's not a huge park, but he did hit the object limit, and you'll see because of the detail in here, you'll see why. Not even enough objects to finish the black tile over here, which is understandable. I'd rather it be put into the park than black tile. But let us dig in. So let's have a look here as we begin. So we have a really nice parking area here with nice little exit toll booths here and the turnaround and everything. And then a couple of these buildings that look sort of almost like portable units. I've never actually been to Thorpe Park. I was meant to go this year, but COVID got in the way. And then we have our annual pass little booth right here too. I love the ramps and the handrails up to it, and then these potted plants are really nice too. So here's our main entrance with a couple of little placard map type things on either side, and a little further back we'll go ahead and look at the parking lot while we're here. I like how it transitions from paved to the gravel over here, and then this little like radio station, radio tower here. Just sits really nicely, sort of plopped in the middle here, with all the lines wrapping around it, and then just sort of the little overgrowth and the tower itself. And then we have our extended parking over here, and this kind of neat little unpaved bit here. This is nicely detailed and just looks good. I like too that the parking or the cars kind of fade out to nothing over on this side, and that they're not totally full over here. And that there's a variety, maybe a little bit more color than you would see in real life, but color looks good. So here's our nice entrance here with a pretty detailed look with our ticket booths and everything like that. And nice simple entrance as the real park has. And then we'll head on over the bridge and onto the island, which starts in this big covered dome thing that has some shops and stalls in here, and pops out on the other end, kind of overlooking the entire park. What's always struck me about Thorpe is just how tiny the park is, but how much stuff they managed to squeeze in. So let's start here on the side, and we'll work our way around. So here is one of the first rides, and he's done a nice job of kind of burying some other rides in here. Looks like miniature golf based on the peeps walking around. But this is Vortex, one of their frisbee rides, and then right nearby we have the Scream and Swing here. This is Rush, and then Quantum. Here's a little magic carpet type ride. Over here along the water, I really like the look of this riverboat, the Thorpe Bell. Nice detailing there. Almost looks a little squat on the back, but that's how the real thing looks. But it's quite nice. And here we transition into our first of the big coasters in the park, and probably the biggest one on this map. As we get into this sort of like ancient ruin-ish architecture. I'm not sure what the actual area name is for it, if they have an area name, but you can kind of see it starting here in this like little snack stand and then transitioning into it in the space itself. But this is Colossus, and this is where the semi recreation comes into play, as this is not a recreation of Colossus. So in real life, Colossus was the first coaster in the world to go upside down 10 times, and has since been cloned in a number of places, and now there's a version 2 layout. among them. But this one is a little bit different. So this one looks to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 inversions. Because we're foregoing the corkscrews and one more of the rolls on this side. The layout looks better for RCT, honestly. It's really hard to get the actual Intamin 10 layout to look any kind of decent. But we still maintain some of the hallmarks of the design, like this airtime hill underneath of this drop, which goes under the exit path, and then Cobra roll here over the water. We're going to wrap down under the path, come up and over, and then go through these rolls here. A little bit quick, perhaps, but not too bad. And then there's that one final roll at the end. So the real one has a loop, a Cobra roll, 2 corkscrews, 4 in a row inline twists, and then one more in the opposite direction once you get around the backside. But looks good overall. I wish it ran block sections, though this is before open, I believe, or mostly before open, so it was a little more difficult then. But nice looking. Okay, transfer track here, the maintenance area, just all of that is looking good. And I love the queue line here. A lot of these fences that were sort of hallmarks of the Tussauds group who used to own the parks. So looking good there, and just nicely put together overall. Love the supports along here. The kind of horizontal stringers that go across are really nice. But let's continue around and see the next of the rides here. So this is another static ride called Samurai. This is a Mondial Top Scan, which I do love. They're really good rides in real life. And honestly, in the U.S. where I am, there really aren't a lot of parks with amazing collections of flat rides. Really, you go to fairgrounds for that more than anything. But Thorpe kind of checked all those boxes with a bunch of really good stuff. So let's get into this area here, which is Canada Creek, or Canada something. I think it's Canada Creek, where we have a couple of different rides. There's the Chief Ranger's Carousel. There's a rock climbing wall here, and then a couple of little bits of just theming. Like I love this little wagon right here with the seating on the inside, like super cool. Love that. This looks like a guess your weight game, and some other little details throughout. Train station right here. So we're just using that one goes off to the end there. They're just using the little loop here. That's interesting, as you can kind of see some theming here where it goes through and looks like it's going to crash into the mine. And then over here we have our log flume, Logger's Leap. This ride has since sadly closed, I believe. There were rumors at one point that there was going to be a GCI wooden coaster out on this portion of the island. Never did come to fruition, but certainly would have been cool to see. Nice looking flume, though. I like the layout. I know it's a recreation, essentially, but it just kind of sits nicely through the trees. I love the little peaks that you get. Like over here where we can see all the little waterfalls and sluice with the teepees and things like that, and then our double drop down, and then our photo booth here, and just other little details like the little water pump station on the side and the water chute guns on the corner here. This looks like one of those family dryers that you can pay $5 to get still wet but just more warm in. So really cool, nicely done in this area, and just looking good in general. This looks like a bank of lockers right here, which I think is super cool. And then this Western theme sort of continues out and over here to the Burger King, and then these other buildings. So on the back side of all that here, we have Slammer, which is standing but not operating. It still is standing there. This was one of 2 SNS Sky SWAT rides. There was one here and one at Six Flags Astroworld, which was then moved to Six Flags New England, which was unfortunately scrapped. And then this one was not scrapped, but it was just left in place, and I believe is still there. A shame, because it is a cool ride. I rode the one in Six Flags New England, and a lot of fun. Really unique, weird ride, but surprisingly good. So I like this shade structure here, the use of the kind of track texture structure over top of the what I assume to be sort of like a canvas awning that's sort of strung across everything. I think that looks really nice, really well done through there. And then the little trampoline bounce things. Everybody kind of does theirs their own way among all the different pieces. So it's kind of neat to see what was done for this one. So that was done well. Swinging ship right here in the middle. Mr. Monkey's Banana Ride, which is fun, and the little push cart, popcorn cart looking thing here. Let's work our way back, and we'll come back to Nemesis Inferno because that one's a good one. So as we string around the front here, we get to our big box in the middle of the park. So this is X, which used to be X No Way Out, which is now The Walking Dead, of all things. Merlin, who owns the park now, has seemed to really go all in on the horror themes. So we have Saw the Ride, we have this, there's Darren Brown's Ghost Train VR experience, and there's just a bunch of other things. But anyway, so this is a nice little indoor coaster here with a lot of trains and entry and an exit station, which if you're playing for peeps or just for scenario play, I highly recommend entry and exit stations because you can definitely up your capacity and your throughput really well. What I like about this one is that they've adjusted Airtime's adjusted the block brakes here and everything so that this ride generally gets held up right here and stops, because the real one did stop in the middle. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I'm going to call it intentional because I think it's nice. The building itself is kind of giant and garish and has this giant X across the top of it, but it is what it is. It certainly stands out, even though you do what you can to hide it with the trees. So here's our little kids area in the middle here. So this is Slippery Serpent. Here is Galleon Race. Here is Fantasy Fish and the Swinging Seashells. So really nice looking, just little kids areas here. I don't know if they are working. It looks like they are. So that's good to see. Always nice to see useful or working flat rides like this. If you don't know how to make one of these, I do have a tutorial on the channel, so definitely check it out. And then over here we have our Neptunes, our little kind of swimming pool area, like wave pool with the beach seating around it, and then a nice little wet dry slide. This is depth charge. They're called wet dry slides because they're kind of meant to get you off semi-dry, but that doesn't always happen. So and then we have a little play area here in the backside of this whole area. So as we transition across this way, we enter Amity Cove, which is kind of this whole area here as one big old hole. So this little structure is really cool, kind of the boat theme. So it's got games inside of it, but a lot of really nice theming in this park that isn't necessarily reciprocated these days from what was done back when Tussauds and some of the earlier Berlin spend. But there's a lot of really cool stuff. I really like what they did with Tidal Wave, the splash boats here with the flooded town at the bottom and the big water tower here, and this like oil tank that's on its side, and has all sorts of fun little details like this kind of house thing that's on its side and sunk down in here, and that's where you get into the station and you can kind of see it broken apart, which is where your exit is. Lots of cool thought process behind the theming elements to this, and really well done overall. And I think it was conveyed incredibly well in the game, just with the limited resources you have in the game. A shame that this is going so slow. We're at 0, but we'll speed it up so we can watch the splash, just because it's always worth watching the splash, and an appropriate number of boats too, I should say, with 2. Here we go, spoosh. So everybody gets soaked on the bridge. But yeah, 2 boats or 3 boats, which is good. You don't want to do too many. The game wants to spawn a lot more than you actually need if you're going to build realistically. If you're not worried about that, then okay, up your capacity. But if you want to build realistically, give it for a layout like this, 3 is probably your max. Here's a nice big chunk of buildings, lots of good theming to it, some back of house areas. I like the little entryway here that you can see some games stuck in the middle in there, and just some of the roof details in there also. All right, so now let's go look at Nemesis Inferno, which is a B&M inverted coaster. Now, Nemesis Inferno was the sequel to Nemesis at Alton Towers, which is still regarded as one of the best coasters in the world and one of the best B&M inverted coasters. Nemesis Inferno is, I won't say it's a little less recognized than its counterpart, but it still is an interesting coaster for a couple of reasons. So the Inferno part is this volcano, which is the part of the station here, and I love it. It's just really cool theming. But unlike a lot of inverted coasters, it starts with a pre-lift section. So it drops out of the lift or out of the station into this tunnel and has this kind of weaving little parts and pieces down here, and then shoots up the lift hill and engages about a quarter of the way up the lift. Neat start to the ride, and it's something that you don't see on a lot of E&Ms, so I really like that especially. Now the layout itself is kind of short, so we have our curving left-hand drop into a loop, and then we have our 0G roll, which pulls out pretty early into a tight corner, and then up into interlocking corkscrews, which this is the only inverted coaster from B&M that has interlocking corkscrews. That was generally something for the floorless and sit-down coasters instead. So that's a bit of a unique feature. And then these kind of opposing helixes and into the brakes. Really nice details here on the brake area. Well done through all of that with the transfer track. That's done well with the structure here, and just all the supports are really detailed and nicely put together. There's definitely a lot of time spent into those. Supports can be a pain, but when they're done well, they just look good. Over here next to Nemesis Inferno is Detonator. Detonator is a Fabry drop tower. Kind of the unique thing with this one is that it has pistons that when the car is released, which is a manual release by the operator, the pistons shove the car down so it drops faster than gravity, which is a pretty cool feature for everything. So we've got that. It's a little bit of an odd choice that he chose to launch it rather than drop it, but again, semi-recreations, you can do what you want. Okay, and we have some and a viewing space for some shows out here, closed off at the moment, which it sounds like it's a special event area. And then on this corner of the island, we have the Aruba Rapids, which I like a lot because they have wild colors. You don't usually see rapids ride with varying just bright colors and stuff like this. It's not a terribly exciting rapids ride, but there's a lot of interesting stuff with the tunnel here. I like this curved tunnel coming across. Again, nice pump details and things such as that. Little water bit here, and then just all the filtration stuff and the maintenance buildings, and just all that is done really well. Putting a monorail underneath the circular track here gives a really good look like the rotating platform station. So I always recommend doing that, even though it is a little glitchy. To be honest, for me, I look past the glitch because I think it's just a nice touch there on the overall. So I like to see that. We have our path going off into nothing. The context is nice here. You can kind of see all the old bits of quarry that used to be around here that are looking to be filled in. But let's get back to the park and finish first. So we'll look at all that. So here we have another little building and some nice details on the Space 2. And over here we have Storm in a Teacup. Our little teacups ride with a nice cover over top of it. Now, this park was set in 2006, according to the README, which was when Stealth debuted. So Stealth is sort of a half-height King de Ka. It's a 200-foot intimate accelerator coaster with the Airtime hill. Because of local regulations, it fades out to white over top, which gives it kind of this neat color fade as it goes up through the thing. So let's take a look here as we launch up and over that hill, and then back on down and over the Airtime hill here into the brakes. So what I like about this one is that there's a lot of really nice just details here with the bi-rail track for the maintenance area. Here we have the tri-rail track for this bit, and then we have the brakes here used with as a single rail track, so you can kind of see how that's meant to sit over top. And I think that was all really, really well done throughout, and then just all the bits and details. it's an open station, which is a little bit of an odd thing for the U.S., for example, but works here. Um, this is a big tire that you enter through as you walk in, so it's got this racing theme through the whole thing. I always liked how the planters here wrapped the supports, and the supports had the striping on the bottom. I think that looks really nice. But again, just all the back of house detailing here, and there's a lot of uh, nice little bits and details, and you can definitely see how he hit the object limit with some of the micro detailing and signage and things like that's in here. There's really a lot to look at, and it's cool. Um, since I've never been to the park, I don't know it fully well, but I spent a lot of times in Google Maps and Street View and things like that, just looking around the park. And it's where it is meant to be a straight recreation. It is very accurate, very very well done. So I can commend Airtime for that, just the detailing with it. And then, like we were doing earlier, just looking around, there's a lot of other bits and pieces here to see. Some of these maintenance buildings along the side. This little like event space here in the back. So this is the Lakeview Terrace kind of building here. Some other trailer buildings, and then have all these just little bits and pieces out to this warehouse in the back, a little freezer here, dumpster, and things like that. I mean, and then actually going out even further, you have this kind of old looking warehouse with the tank on the side, which I think is really well done, and then the little building here as well. Just the detailing is really nice. I love the aged fading bits with the flat roof tile objects and then just fading to essentially nothing to the landscape tiles on the side. So that's all very well done. And then the landscaping itself is very thick, but taking advantage of those big trees. So then this guy that's got a lot of fullness to it, and then some of these other multi-tile trees. That's really become a big thing lately, and I'm really happy it has, because I feel like the landscaping options in the game have improved immensely over the last couple of years. So there's a lot of good variety that you can use for everything now. It would be interesting to see, when the object limit goes away, what this park could look like expanded to what it is today. So, for example, Saw the Ride is right here in our little skate park area, which we did not look at fully, which you're going to miss because it's got the cool vert ramp and everything in here. That is now Darren Brown's Ghost Train. Right over here is the oh shoot, I'm blanking on the wing coaster name right now, because it's not stealth, but somebody will tell me. But yes, the so we have all of that, and then Swarm. Swarm is what it's called. Finally, I was going to be very embarrassed if I couldn't come up with that. And then Flying Fish, their powered coaster, is over this way also. So that's all squeezed in here. So it is a semi recreation. I know you said that, but really the only thing to me that's terribly much recreate or not a recreation is Colossus, and I kind of understand the artistic choice behind that. I don't think I would have gone for a recreation either, but all in all, a great park. Really well done. Like I said, I got a score of 90 for the spotlight voting, which is really high and really well done. Very well deserved too. I think for a park that kind of on the surface, when you zoom out, it kind of looks like, that's it. It's a little small. But once you get into it, you can really see the details and the effort put into all the different spaces and rides and things like that. So can't blame it for hitting the object limit, because the detail is absolutely there and it's well done. So excellent job, and hope all of you enjoyed this. If you'd like to download the park, there is going to be a download link in the description. And as always, if you have a park that you would like me to review, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I will take a look at that. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.